The concept of a last airbender implies a lot of dead airbenders. And after watching the two-part pilot for the first time, you may wonder to yourself, when and how is a kids' show going to address a concept like that? The answer is they address it in the next episode, and it's a punch they really don't pull. Because what Aang goes through in this episode isn't just important, but narratively foundational. It establishes the stakes for the entire series. Aang seeing his once vibrant home reduced to a dilapidated, lifeless battlefield illustrates the caliber of destruction the Fire Nation is inflicting on the rest of the world. And while he and his friends will spend the rest of the series fighting to end that destruction, as for right now, Aang's situation is helpless. There is no bringing back the home or people he lost. Despite how sad this episode is, it's still very well balanced. Avatar has always been known for mixing dark and light moments, and this episode is a great example of there being more to that balancing act than just humor. Generally speaking, when you're this early into a show geared towards a younger demographic, you typically want to end each episode with some sense of accomplishment or triumph, what I call the win. Moments like this aren't compulsory. There are plenty of episodes of Avatar that end very bleakly, but this early into the series, lingering exclusively on a plot point this dark just wouldn't have felt earned. So how can the audience get that sense of satisfaction while still being presented with a narratively critical tragedy that cannot be undone? A tragedy that is so personal to the protagonist and renders them completely grief-stricken and helpless. Give the win to someone else. This is the first freedom provided by Zuko playing the role of a Deuteragonist. One of the limitations of your average hero-villain relationship is that their moments of accomplishment are very dichotomous. One can't really succeed without the other failing. Aang and Zuko's goals at this point in the series are still diametrically opposed, but Zuko being a Deuteragonist with antagonistic goals rather than a straightforward villain provides room for him to operate outside of that central push and pull. This provides the perfect opportunity to introduce the real villain of Season 1.
Captain Zhao.
It's Commander now.
The timing and execution of Zhao's introduction is brilliant. Zuko's interaction with Zhao introduces the audience to just how strained and complicated Zuko's relationship with the Fire Nation actually is. But paramount to the balance of this specific episode, it gives us someone much less likable than Zuko. Zhao does all of this by cutting to the core of Zuko's character through personal attacks. Zhao begins bullying Zuko, seeing Zuko's talk of honor as a facade to be shattered for Zhao's own entertainment. We know this because he mocks Zuko not for his lack of power or royal nobility, but for his lack of love.
You're just a banished prince. No home, no allies. Your own father doesn't even want you.
Within the story, Zhao does this to humiliate Zuko, but for the audience, it shows that while Zuko's goal of capturing Aang is not sympathetic, his underlying motivations for that goal are. This plants the seeds for what later becomes a core tenet of Zuko's character, but at this point, he's still just a bad guy. We don't yet see Zuko as the lost soul he truly is until much later, but for now, we don't need to. We just want to see him get one over on Zhao. When tensions finally boil over between Zuko and Zhao, we get the first Agni Kai of the series, where inside the tent we start to soften to Zuko. This is where, for the first time in the series, we actively start rooting for him. We really want to see him knock the smirk off of Zhao's face. This fight scene is very short, but deceptively expositional. It shows the core tenets of firebending that come into play as late as the final episode of the series. When Zuko breaks Zhao's root and compromises his stability, it gives him the opening he needs and we get our win. This is what balances the episode so well. Not to mention that after the fact, we get a glimpse of who Zuko is deep down.
Do it! That's it? Your father raised a coward.
Next time you get in my way, I promise. I won't hold back.
And who Iroh is just under the surface. In the next episode, Zuko is back to playing the role of the villain just like he was in the last, but he was able to balance the tone of this episode by shifting some of the sympathetic narrative responsibility off of Aang and onto himself in a way unique to a Deuteragonist. Aang had to find out that he was the last airbender. He had to take that hit to his innocence, but by utilizing Zuko in a way exclusive to his character archetype, the story was never monotonously sad. Thanks to the flexibility of a Deuteragonist, your protagonist has the leeway to go down emotionally monotonal thematic paths like this, because the entirety of your story isn't as emotionally bound to the experiences of just that one character. Emotional realism doesn't often lend itself to short-term narrative satisfaction. So when something devastating happens to your protagonist and you need some levity or excitement or hope, a well-placed Deuteragonist can be the perfect character to whom that baton can be passed.